Hey everyone, Angelo here, Hollywood filmmaker, greatest screenwriter in the history of the world, recovering homeless guy, with another rant about Master of Ceremonies Albert Vera. I am so compelled and intrigued about this mooching bum leeching off the labor of the workers on his olive ranch and deli. He's a multimillionaire. He inherited his wealth from his dad, and he's poised to win re-election in Culver City. They're still counting the ballots for the Culver City Council. So I wanted to give some more thoughts on this goon and how he's helping make mobility in Culver City a disaster for everybody. Either it's extremely expensive if you get around, or you just don't get around. We'll see who is and who isn't in Culver City, meaning who counts as a person, who doesn't. So, reading from my little script here. Culver City Council member Albert Vera Jr. claims to care about traffic congestion, so he voted to add a second vehicle lane through downtown and rip out the bike lanes. He claims to care about police response time and speaks unbidden and at length in support of police funding, which has gone up tens of millions of dollars in recent years. Yet, I can't find anything to indicate that the 10,000 trips a day made on Culver City buses that are made by people who have to wait 15 to 40 minutes for a bus is an issue for him. So why not? If he cares about mobility and if he cares about congestion, why doesn't he care about congestion? Why doesn't he care about mobility? It's like got a little asterisk on it where, oh, I only care about it for certain people. If you're a bus rider, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. Albert Vera doesn't care about that. So what's the difference between caring about private vehicle time and congestion, police response time, and bus rider like time waiting for, or bus frequency, and how long you have to wait for a bus to get to work, and how long you have to wait for a bus to get home from work? Well, bus riders are predominantly low income and disproportionately people of color. Black and brown people, people with disabilities, our elders, immigrants, and those too young to drive. Bus drivers, who are disproportionately people of color, are paid $40,000 a year to start. Police are paid upwards of $70,000 a year. So in other words, police get a living wage, but bus drivers don't. $40,000 is a little over $3,000 a month. That's not a living wage. The median rent in Culver City is $3,100 a month, so a little over $3,000 a month. Meaning, if you're a bus driver, you can't afford to live in Culver City. You have to live, in all likelihood, far away from Culver City and make a super commute from places as far away as Riverside, and you have to own a car, which is about $10,000 a year. But Albert Vera doesn't mention that as essentially a tax on mobility here. You have to pay a $10,000 Vera family mobility tax to get through the area. And does the money go to the city? No, that money gets kicked up to bank executives, auto executives, and oil executives. And these people don't charge you rock bottom prices and do it out of the kindness of their hearts. They charge you as much as they can. They grift. They apply pressure to the government to get special privileges to be able to run their businesses, and they get tons of subsidies to do it because they're financially unviable. They can't afford to build the roads. They can't afford to run an oil industry without hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies. So, that said, $40,000 is not a living wage, so the city can't hire enough bus drivers. So people don't take the bus and they drive instead, and buses get stuck in this private vehicle traffic from people who drive because they can't take the bus. We only have enough bus drivers to get this frequency of roughly 15 to 40 minutes. I take the bus in Culver City, and I also see the bus. I'm also out a lot where I can see people waiting a bus and watch and watch and watch until they get picked up. This is a racist system meant to shut black and brown people out of Culver City life, but without the baggage of Albert Vera, a racist pig, explicitly calling for racial segregation. Because it's done slowly, perniciously, it's invisible. It's just assumed like, hey, did you drive today? Were you stuck in traffic? Oh man, it would be so much better if you got an extra lane. Well, let's do it. And you're who matters. The bus riders, the bus drivers, they don't matter to Albert Vera. Pretty crappy position. It seems like he's a real jerk. And like I said, it makes traffic congestion worse. So it seems like he doesn't like anyone. I don't know what this guy's problem is. He seems like a real crappy guy. This sabotage of the bus system has implications for all traffic. As I said, people can't rely on the bus, so they drive cars instead, adding to congestion and their cost of living. They have to live further away from their jobs because they can't afford the high rents or home ownership in Culver City. We have to build infrastructure farther out because we have to accommodate so many cars, which take up space, they're space inefficient, and build parking lots everywhere. Whereas you can fit a dozen or so bikes in the space that a car takes up, you can only fit a car in the space the space a car takes up. Y'all get that? So buses get stuck in this traffic. The bus riders are stuck in this traffic. They waste hours and hours of their lives stuck in this traffic when they're so much more efficient at getting people around than cars. They have so much higher capacity. So this seems like a great way to get people moving, right? But Vera, nah, that's not his kind of thing. He doesn't want people moving. He wants certain people moving, his people. We'll see who those people are. Not only the buses get stuck in this traffic, but the dedicated bus lanes only go a little over 1.6 miles through downtown. And to be fair, they're being extended under this Vera's plan in which he ripped out the bike lanes. They're being extended a little bit east. And then Vera's chauvinist conservative constituents whine that they don't see buses in the bus lanes. I see this a lot online. They make these comments, but there are no buses in the bus lanes. And I guess the thought process stops there. There's no more curiosity after that as far as who's responsible for the buses. Are the buses just a species of animals coming through? Like this is a animal bridge, an animal crossing? Or are the buses the private vehicles of the bus drivers? And for some reason, we're just giving special lanes to them? So therefore, these conservative chauvinists think the bus lanes are unnecessary, begging the question, who runs the bus network? Well, Albert Vera and the city council do. Who's responsible for getting the bus drivers paid more so we can hire more and get more frequency? Albert Vera and the city council. But also you all, the conservatives. Why don't you advocate to remedy this situation? You advocate for certain things. So why not ask to pay the bus drivers better? Just like cops. Or ask, better yet, this is even better, this is a good one. Ask to pay the bus drivers more instead of the cops. Well, the answer for that is, as to why don't they advocate for this? The answer is racism. A lot of our white neighbors in Culver City are in de facto segregated neighborhoods. They still harbor views from the days when Culver City was a sundown town, meaning black people and other people of color couldn't drive through it or own homes in it. They would be infuriated by the idea of people of color and low-income earners having the same access to life in Culver City as they do, if they got a well-running bus system. And Albert Vera would only enrage his constituents if he called for better bus service for the very people who need it the most. The ones who are waiting for it, low-income people, people of color. If he went to his constituents and said, hey, we have a problem with racial and class equity in this community, we need to get our black and brown neighbors moving faster, he knows for his constituents, those are their least favorite kinds of neighbors. They want to make sure people cannot access their neighborhoods. They want to make sure they can't move in because I guess it's their human right to have an all-white neighborhood with highly valued properties that they can sell for more than they bought them for. That's just a human right. Like, that's not like, if you're poor, like, the bus is supposed to be like punishment for people who can't afford a car or don't want a car. It's just assumed, like, when you get your act together, you'll graduate to getting a car someday. And it's an odd, like grotesque irony that these people think they're, like, informed and enlightened, but all they're doing is taking in what the built environment and capitalist brainwashing is telling them as far as what is freedom. Freedom is a single family home and owning a car. Well, that's really a welfare queen attitude because you're mooching off the people who pay into the tax or who are the tax base, those who live in the urban centers where utilities cost less and their tax dollars are the taxes they pay go further than yours because yours in a single family home cannot possibly pay for all the infrastructure you're benefiting from. The cars you drive tear up the roads, they require maintaining. The utilities that run to your house through all these miles of street networks cost more than you can ever pay in. You're not paying for all the health what are they called? Externalities that people deal with, higher rates of childhood asthma, the climate catastrophe, the higher rates of cancer, the cardiovascular disease, the slow moving, like other health problems from a lack of mobility, and also the short term ones of people being maimed and killed by car crashes. You're not paying for that. Other people are. Oh, how convenient. That doesn't make you enlightened. It doesn't make you accomplished or some successful entrepreneur. It makes you a bum. It makes you trash. So Vera's complete failure on the bus network is compounded by combining the bus lane with the bike lane. So that's what happened. The bike lanes got ripped out, and now the cyclists have to share a lane with the buses. So buses have to travel behind cyclists. Weird how Vera felt he got a mandate from a poll of Culver City residents who said they didn't like the bike lanes when the poll was worded in a way to make it very easy to get that answer, and it gave no explanation of how more bike ridership and bus ridership eases traffic. So therefore we should hire more bus drivers, pay them more to hire them more, extend the bus lanes, extend the bike lanes so more people can bike safely to their destinations in Culver City, as opposed to a lot of people cannot bike safely at all in much of Culver City. Or affordable housing that Vera has refused to support, which would make it easier to live closer to where you work and reduce traffic by shortening commutes. Because the city did not ask bus riders if they want to be in the same lane as cyclists, nor did it ask if they want more frequent bus service. I guess if you're poor, black, or brown, Albert Vera just doesn't care what you think, and he doesn't want to care. He's been in city council for years. Like, he could ask, he could raise his pipsqueak little voice if he wanted. Like when he talks about, the vilification of police is quite unfortunate. It's a very interesting talking point because I've seen that on white supremacist podcasts and forums. The idea that the police are being attacked for enforcing crime or enforcing laws against criminals, and criminals being code for black people, and that white liberals are too afraid of being called racist to want those laws enforced, and that this is a plot by the Jews orchestrated to destroy the white race through a collective suicide. Albert Vera serves at the behest of this white supremacist disgusting ideology, but he just doesn't want the baggage of it, and he doesn't want to be called out for it. Imagine having to wait. So back to my rant. I gotta back up. So the question arises, is Albert Vera deliberately setting out on a white supremacist policy of neglecting and humiliating people of color who wait for the bus, who have to stand there? As I saw yesterday, I was out for an hour yesterday in downtown, and I see people waiting at the bus stop in the middle of downtown for 15 minutes. These big, empty, wide street, mostly empty, and then cars are able to pass through as frequently as they like, and these people have to suffer the humiliation, the degradation of wasting their time just standing there because of this pig. So back to my script. The question arises, is Albert Vera deliberately setting out on a white supremacist policy of neglecting and humiliating people of color who wait for the bus? Or is white supremacy so fundamental to this racist pig's identity that he commits to it without even thinking about it? The answer to both is yes. He's ignorant, but he's willfully ignorant. He does not strike me as a thinking kind of guy who would bother studying this. He's not like, oh, I need to look up urban planning and talk to city designers and engineers and study how cities around the world deal with this problem and hear from people in the community about racial inequities in service and what it's like to have to wait 20 minutes for a bus to get to work and then get home late, because the buses are even more delayed going home. Or when I try and get the bus, like from Veterans Park after rollerblading, I just can't. So I'll just walk a mile with my rollerblades on my back, which hurts my freaking back, to get to my bike and then bike home. Where the hell was I? Oh, yeah. He does not strike me as a stinking kind of guy. He is a stinking guy, but a thinking kind of guy. Yet he serves at the pleasure of white supremacist elements who are effectively slowly grinding black and brown people out of Culver City life. Latino people made up 25% of Culver City's population a few years ago. It's gone down to 18%. So a lot of them, and a lot of people in general, cannot afford to live there. It's sickening. I met someone at a shop who was working there. She was so nice. And she said she grew up here, went to high school here, can't afford to live here. How shameless is that? So many people, he benefits from this, that we, the people who need it the most, like who work in Culver City, shop in Culver City, travel in Culver City, enjoy our social lives in Culver City, cannot actually afford to live there. Oh, and because, by the way, as a sundown town, Culver City was built with a lot of single family homes where white people who moved out of the inner cities, leaving their black and brown neighbors behind, got the benefit of loans that were denied, or the practice of redlining was committed to to make sure black and brown people could not, and Jews could not, were not allowed to get these loans to move into the white suburbs. And then when you live far away from the job centers because you're out in the suburbs, you don't have the density for public transportation. What do? You drive everywhere. So you got to have money to do that because you got to pay the $10,000 a year or so it costs to own a car. It's a great system for shutting poor people out, and black and brown people, and making people poor and keeping them poor. So imagine having to wait at a red light for up to 40 minutes for it to change. That would be unacceptable. But for Albert Vera and his wealthy white constituents, black and brown people going through that indignity is just fine and even desirable when they're doing it with a bus instead of waiting at a red light. The way cars have influenced us, these horrible force multipliers, and a car can be a beautiful piece of machinery. It can be great for getting people around, good for road trips, good for deliveries, but we've overbuilt for it, and we've built in a way that excludes people. That's a segregation by design, and that's actually a term used for how highways were used to divide up communities, destroy black and brown communities, like in Sugar Hill, which is, I don't know if it's in Culver City itself or in the city of LA, but it borders, either way, it's right there next to it, which is now West Adams. It was a wealthy black neighborhood that was destroyed, flattened to build the 10 highway, the Santa Monica Freeway. Boyle Heights, Latino neighborhood that was destroyed to build freeways. So for Vera and his wealthy white constituents, black and brown people going through that indignity of waiting and waiting and waiting for a bus, hours and hours a week, is just fine and even desirable. I have a feeling that's not necessarily an unfortunate byproduct of their neglect of the bus system, but a desirable or a coveted fringe benefit. I guess they'd rather the 10,000 bus trips a day that were, I guess they'd rather the 10,000 bus trips that are made a day were made by car instead. Maybe that would help traffic. So to be clear, Albert Vera doesn't give a damn if you're not rich, white, and paying $10,000 a year that it costs to own and maintain a car. So you don't get to be mobile in Culver City unless you do those things. This is an attitude called screw you, I got mine. And a sad irony of this all is, for a lot of people, if they can't rely on the bus, they have to get a car. And for a lot of those bus riders, being people of color, if they drive through Culver City, their chances of a police interaction go up because a huge number of police interactions in Culver City are with drivers. And a recent study of cities all across California showed that Culver City police had a disparity in the use of force of 1.9 times more. They used force against black people as white people. So almost twice as much they were using force against black people as white people. And that was the highest of any city in California. A lot of racists just straight up cheer this and love that, and they're like kicking their heels or clicking their heels to it. So that's Albert Vera's constituency right there. And don't forget, my last little note, racist pig Albert Vera Jr. was spawned by Albert Vera Sr., who was mayor of Culver City in the 90s. And Albert Vera Sr. hired one of the cops who beat Rodney King, Timothy Wynn, to work for the Culver police, saying that he deserved a chance to make a living. So in the Vera clan's Culver City, if you beat a black man on the side of the road, you have a better chance of making a living wage than if you're a black man driving a bus on the side of the road. These bus drivers have to have so much patience. They're dealing with the public. They work overtime. They're not paid enough. They're dealing with bad drivers on the road. They have to find times to eat, to use the restroom. And they know there's so much pressure on them to perform because they have to ferry around 10,000 people a day in Culver City and around LA. They don't just limit themselves to Culver City streets. This is absolutely shameless. It's an indignity on us. If conservatives care about traffic, you can care about traffic, not just care about cars and certain cars at certain times moving faster. And the problem of adding an extra lane too is That means people drive faster. That means more points of conflict. Also with the 2 lanes, that means more chances of crash, and the likelihood that a crash is deadlier when they happen. I witnessed a hit and run of a cyclist, by the way, last week, when a driver was turning left on Washington Boulevard and was ostensibly looking at the 2 lanes of oncoming traffic and wasn't noticing the cyclist crossing in the intersection, and hit the cyclist and stopped, and apparently the driver said, "Hey, your leg's okay, right? Your leg's okay," and drove off. That's what car culture teaches us to value is, I have this powerful machine that gets me somewhere fast. What's the point of having it if I can't get somewhere? I went to the cyclist. I made sure that he went to the hospital, and he was shaken. His adrenaline was going. My adrenaline was going. I felt nauseous. I felt disgusted. It's disturbing. It's like a violation of the integrity of his body to be struck by a vehicle like that. And don't worry, Albert Vera, the driver got to work on time. I know that's the important question for him, because these are acceptable losses for people. It's weird. We want people moving faster, but that cyclist didn't get to where he wanted to go. He had to go to the hospital afterwards and get an MRI. So that's Albert Vera's Culver City. Bad for cyclists, bad for drivers, bad for bus riders, bad for pedestrians, bad for bus drivers. Basically, he just doesn't like people. He seems like a real jerk. I don't think he likes anybody. So let me know what you think. If you're an Albert Vera supporter, I'd be really curious to know why you don't care about the bus riders and the bus drivers. I mean, you could speak up if you want. You could tell Albert Vera about this. I doubt he'll even comprehend. He just strikes me as nobody's home when you try and get through to him. And he has a fetish for the police, essentially. Yeah, how many people did you arrest? I saw him talk at city council for 30 minutes to the police, just unbidden, just dropping stuff so. In other words, if you have proper funding, you can be staffed properly, right? And get to where you're going on time. And it was almost it was just missing the moment of him looking at the gallery and saying, "See everyone? Y'all see that? Did you notice the police need more funding? Y'all didn't think to ask that. I did. I asked if the police need more funding. I'm a guy that needs the police to be funded." And his daughter works for the police, by the way, so he should disclose that, because that can become a conflict of interest if he's advocating for more funding of his daughter's employer and more powers and more protections. So maybe, Vera, pretend your daughter was a bus driver, although I know you're probably more racist than you care about your family. So I don't think you would be concerned then about helping bus riders just because your family or a family member drives the bus. So anyways, out there, everyone be well. Get on a bike, smash capitalism, ride the bus, ride metro. Let's advocate for better pay. If you're anybody who wants better traffic, ask leaders, tell them you demand better pay for the metro operators, for bus drivers, and you demand bus lanes, because people need to be able to use the bus reliably in order for them to abandon their cars and take and use the bus as a viable means of transportation. That won't happen unless you speak up. And you includes everyone, all of us, me, progressives, we all need to. So speak up. You have no reason not to. It'd be great. Get everybody around. Awesome. Stop supporting auto executives and the stockholders in auto and oil companies and the banks and insurance companies that we're indebted to, because we have to own these sealed off steel capsules that we drive around on. All right, everybody. Finally, I'm going for real. Thanks for watching. Bye.